I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Human Design Podcast with me, your host, Emma Dunwoody. I'm a qualified master coach and human behaviour specialist, as well as being a qualified human design coach. And I work with clients every single day to answer the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? I also assist them to transition from the person they think they should be to the person they really are on the inside. I teach people how to actually live their design instead of just knowing it. And if this is something that you want to do too, well, stay tuned or reach out for private coaching or Human Design Unpacks, where I show you exactly how to live your design.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I am super excited because it is that time of the month again. It is transits time. And well, before we dive in, of course, we have to hear from the incredible Liz Zamorski all about what is coming up for the month of April. Tell us, Liz.
Oh my gosh, April, it is so abundant. All of that fruit that's been ripening on the vine, it is time for a pick-in. And it is going to feel so balanced. It's going to feel so ready. It's going to feel so aligned because we started out with the Nine of Pentacles and Justice. And when I see these two together, it is just that feeling of sighing very gracefully, coming back into your body and feeling so at home. And what we can do when we get there is we can really trust ourselves to step into the newness of life. All of these things that you've been accumulating, the tools, the modalities, the healing, the clarity, it all really starts coming into play this month. You're going to be asked to make some new decisions because as you're moving into this new sense of self, it's going to open up some options for you. So just take a beat. Don't let yourself get stuck up in your head. You can check in up there to check, does this logically make sense? Am I biting off more than I can chew? But let your body do the walking this time. Let it take you through the decision process. Let it show you its infinite wisdom. Let it show you what it has access to that your brain might not, because it's going to lead you to this place of feeling so grounded in your authority, so guided from within, and you're going to be unstoppable. When you get there, there's no stopping you. So let us know how it goes. I'm so excited for everyone in this community because this is really powerful, potent energy. So good luck in the month ahead. And don't forget to stay balanced and grounded in your body.
Oh my God, I feel that already. I'm so excited for April. I've felt this whole massive up leveling. So I'm super, super excited for that. So before I let you go, I have to hear about the flux. I've seen it on Instagram. I've been, of course, stalking you a little bit, but would you share with everyone what this is all about?
Yeah, so the Flux community is a group of mystics and visionaries from literally all around the world. The founding members go from New Zealand to Australia to Sweden to Canada. So we're really anchoring the light and building this business, building this community in a very new earth way, letting ourselves feel guided while also setting boundaries and then modeling to others how to do the same. So it's a private membership, it's a monthly membership, and it's one in which we really decentralize power and really bring people in and say, let's have a deeper conversation about our experiences, what's going on with us, what feels like expansion, what we're kind of confused about, and be able to crowdsource information on how to expand, how to build this new world, how to build this new earth together. And every week we're going to have a different subject matter expert, and I'll be kicking it off April 1st with a divination masterclass, where not only will we be using cards, but also everyday household items so you can really start integrating your divination into your daily lives. So if this sounds like your type of place to expand and question and build your own philosophy while also learning some pretty cool techniques from subject matter experts, we'd love to have you in there. Like I said, there's pre-registration, but doors open April 1st.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like so much fun. So we'll put all of the details in the show notes so you can follow those links and go and find your like-minded people. Sounds amazing. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks.
it's like the tides of the ocean. There's a season for this and a season for this, a time for this, and we just have to be aware enough and wise enough to know which one it is.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, this is sacral energy, and there's not that much awareness in the sacral center. It's a motor. So that theme, big in April, but we've got a few months on it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Transits podcast for this month. I'm super excited to be joined by the amazing Jenni Crowther. Hey, Jen.
Hi, Emma. Hi, Transits team.
So excited. We're going to dive into April. I had to think about that. I think I got the month wrong last month, so I just had to have a moment. And just also to say, Michelle, Jazz, and all of those other people that have off the cuff mentioned it this month, we will attempt to keep it shorter. I know this is a big epic episode of the podcast, so we are going to make an attempt to make it a little bit more succinct for you, and yeah, keep it. I'll try to keep it on point. I hear you, Michelle. Thanks. All right. So, Jen, do you want to drive? What do you want to do first? Are we looking at March? What are we going to do?
I mean, well, on that point that you just mentioned about feedback, lots of people reaching out this month. So thanks to everyone who sent messages and emails and got in contact with us. It's interesting what makes people respond. The handedness thing, we were like, if the left side of my body graph is defined, am I right-handed, left-handed, goofy, regular, all of that conversation. So quite a few people inputting data on that side. Yeah. I would say the scientist in me says that's inconclusive. Our mini poll is inconclusive. But thanks for getting in touch. We also had someone reach out about their Vedic astrology partner and we had a discussion about natal placements of Mars. I was saying about why is everyone getting ill? We don't know. And they suggested it might be related to natal placements of Mars. I had a look in my own chart. I couldn't find a strong correlation to my natal Mars placement. It was a full 45 degrees away from natal Mars. So yeah, but it's interesting, to get all the feedback and to help inform the narrative, inform my investigations. I don't necessarily always get back to people in person, mainly because I've been in a pit, which I will talk about in a minute. But yeah, just thanks to everyone who takes the time to reach out.
Yeah, I absolutely second that. Inconclusive and very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I mentioned a pit. The emotional definition that was activated in March in the second week, I think, was the 12 to the 22 and the 55. So the individual emotional stream, hope to despair and back again. Particularly strong for me over the weekend of the 11th and 12th of March, which was the tail end of the Sun and Mercury in gate 22, Mars in the 12 and Saturn in the 55. So a pretty strong team gathering there in that circuitry. We'd already had the 4037 channel on the week or so before that. Then, of course, we had the 36, 35, 41, 30 thing activated the month before. So basically, we as a planet have experienced all of the waves in the last 2 months. And boy, have we experienced.
Yeah.
What was really interesting for me that weekend, where I could feel it building for a couple of days, and then by the Friday, it was so heavy. Like my body was like it was made of lead. Like I could barely move my body. And I was like, okay, this is taking me to bed. I'm going to have to clear my diary for the weekend and go to bed, I think. I don't know what's going to happen, but there's definitely something good. Because I follow the transits, I suspected that it might be related to this emotional wave. And even though it sounds like a not very nice experience, when I describe it, it was actually so profound. I really understood the potential of this stream. So I let myself go to the place of existential grief, the grief about humanity's impact on the planet and the biosphere and the biodiversity and the climate, like all of the things, and the way that society seems to be tipping slightly, what I would say, the wrong way, into a less connection, more division, all of that stuff. More aggression. I mean, I'm sure it's not statistically, I'm sure historically we were significantly more aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the statistics on that would be quite strongly in, you could get murdered for many, many just stepping out of your door. But
exactly.
But still, this feeling that I think a lot of people will recognize, that a lot of us are afraid of, because we feel like it's too big to feel, it's too big for one person to feel, and we might never come back out of the pit.
Yeah.
And so I let myself go in, and I cried a lot, and I wailed a lot, and I felt a lot. I really let myself into that place, and I just, maybe for the first time in my life, I felt strong enough to go there and to really hold space for myself in there. And it was hard, but also beautiful. There was this feeling of relief and courage that came out of it. Like I'm glad, I know I'd been putting it off for a very long time, letting myself feel with that intensity about the things. And to come back out the other side of it, I didn't get that feeling that you often get of that joyous high when you've felt a lot of really deep emotion and you pop out and it's all beautiful. It kind of hasn't gone away. There is like a lingering connection to that place. If anyone knows the classics, the Hades and Persephone in the underworld, like I feel like Persephone who went to the underworld, and I haven't quite come back into the spring meadow yet. But I feel so much stronger as a result of having let myself go there, because I know that I can.
Yeah,
and I know it's not going to kill me, you know.
Yeah.
And then coming out of it, I reached out to friends and clients of mine who have that definition on, and we talked about what it's like to be them, and they were like, oh, people not feel that heavy all the time. And I'm like, no, not really. So it just, like we were just saying before we hit record, I've had a tremendous amount of empathy, personal empathy for the emotional process, because it's quite inconsistent for me. I've only got the 6 hanging on the emotional center, so I rarely get defined there. And when I do, it's usually by another person, so you know I can sense how they're feeling, but I don't take it personally. It doesn't feel like mine. So yeah, it's been a really, really interesting month from that perspective.
Wow, far out. And I love that. I just love what you said about that whole letting yourself go into the pit, because I think that so often that is freedom, you know, like the freedom is the fact that we know that we're strong enough to experience these things. And like you said, maybe not completely pop out, but pop out the other side. So I love that. I feel like, you know, it's been emotional for me, but I'm an emotional person. I think it's been a really great month. Lots of emotional experiences though, not so much the depths and those sort of things, but yeah, definitely riding the emotional roller coaster in a good way.
Yeah, but of course, I mean, each wave has a high point. Just because I was down on the low point doesn't mean to say that some of us would have been just actually having a really bright time with it, like because it's poetry and beauty and joy and that social grace and openness and all of that when it's on the high point of the wave. So
yeah,
it's deeper connection, but like a more enjoyable deep depth, if you like.
I love that. And I suppose my retreat, the Byron retreat, was in there as well, and that was like so like emotional, good emotional. It was beautiful. So totally resonate. It's been emotional.
Been emotional. Okay, well, thank the Lord of emotion that we're kind of done with that process for another year. It just, the whole thing just made me reflect on how immature societally we are in our understanding of emotion, of the potential of emotion, of our ability to handle it, process it, and all of that. And I wondered about, you know, talking to the people in my life with that channel defined as part of their natal body graph. They are starting to realize that there might not be anything wrong with them. But, you know, because I think the culture does kind of demonize those highs and lows and tries to keep them small and in a box and says, just get over it, just get on with it, be logical, you know, all of that stuff.
But I think that's all the emotional people, you know, like I resonate with that. You know, I kept myself shut down for years. So and that's what I mean.
I think there's like the 50% of the population that are not emotionally defined consistently have perhaps dominated the culture in that respect, that we're like, there's something wrong with you all, 50% of you, mainly because we can't handle it.
And maybe because, like, I think it's also the flip side is that, you know, you guys, when you do have your emotions, you have your emotions and then they keep moving and then they're done and dusted. And then you look at us and go, just get over it. And it's like, it just doesn't work like that for us. And we have to, like, a large part of my healing journey was realizing that I just had to keep coming around and healing the same thing more times than what I didn't realize at the time was my undefined friends, because they can process this stuff, heal their emotion, heal their trauma, and move the fuck on. Whereas for an emotional person, like, you think there's something wrong with you because you're not healing the first time. The meditation doesn't work for you. The NLP thing doesn't work for you. If you don't have the courage to keep going and doing it over and over and over until it does change and pass, then and it's definitely not part of our culture to say it's okay to be emotional. Like, that was not okay. So yeah, I totally agree. I think that we're starting to realize that there is absolutely nothing wrong with us, and there's nothing wrong with being emotional or you know, passionate or whatever it is. But having said that, there's also a level of what I believe is important for the, you know, emotionally defined people, is we have to take responsibility for our emotions as well. Like, not use them in an unresourceful way, which can, you know, be a weapon against people, or it can be a way to manipulate people, or it can be a way to avoid our own healing, our own journey, all of those things. So, I mean, with every superpower, there's also the shadow, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about that from a splenic perspective before we hit record about, you know, yes, it's a superpower to be highly attuned to absolutely everything that's going on around me, but it's also kind of crippling sometimes because I'm so attuned and I don't get information about what to be attuned to. I just know there's something I'm supposed to be paying attention to, but it's unclear what it is. That leads me in a slightly hyper alert fear state most of the time.
Yeah. Wow. Woo.
So that's March. It was interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting, good for you. Interesting. Yeah, I could have done without that. But actually, I feel okay, you know, coming out. I feel like I finally understand what some of those Greek myths were talking about, because I was really connected to Persephone. I don't know if anyone knows about Persephone. She was just tra-la-la walking through a meadow with her friends, picking flowers, when suddenly the underworld opened up and Hades pops up, and the Lord of the Underworld, and grabs hold of her and drags her down to Hades for 9 days. So, from which she emerged as its queen. So, you know, it's a metaphor for when the emotional pit opens up and drags you down, what are you going to do? Are you going to really feel it and emerge as its queen? Yeah. So yeah, I feel like I've just literally lived the Persephone myth in March.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love a good archetype.
I do. I mean, that's all we are, right? We're just a mashup of archetypes.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll move into looking at April and where we're headed this month. To orientate us on the wheel, for those who follow along on the wheel, we are still in the quarter of initiation, but we're now coming into the second half of it. So when you look at the wheel of the year one, available link in the show notes on my website, there is a very clear solar plexus definition process that happens in the first quarter of initiation. As we move into the second part, we get a trip through very different feeling. Like, it's literally a quarter of two halves, if you like, an eighth, if you like.
I love that.
So the fire hexagram underpins the solar plexus. This desire, this clinging, this is what we explore in the first part of the quarter. The second base trigram is thunder, which is the arousing. It's the weather that shakes the sky, if you think about thunder. The second half of the quarter contains both gates 25, which, as we record, currently the sun is just after the equinox, so the sun is currently in gate 25, and gate 51, which also gets transited by the sun, but there is another activation in there at the moment. Who is it? Who's in 51? Jupiter. Jupiter's in there at the moment. So the channel of initiation, which gives this quarter its name, is activated for everyone at the moment. So that could be quite shocking. It could be quite, it's initiation energy. So if you're looking back at March, as this goes out early April, this week over the equinox is pretty big, potentially pretty big. There's lots of other factors at play. If you follow traditional astrology, the equinox followed by the new moon, followed by the, and then from a human design perspective, this channel, it's a lot. So did your rituals set your intentions? Did your burning, all of the things in that week, because it was super potent. So the second half of this channel of initiation looks very different. We get the sun goes through 2 heart gates, 3 sacral gates, and in April we get a very, very different flavor to March. Like much easier on the emotions, much more geared towards courage and vitality if you think about heart gates and sacral gates.
Amazing.
And and all the planets are direct currently. So April feels like, it's so interesting when you actually really look at when do you actually get to do anything. I think April might be the time you might actually get to do something.
Oh my God, I love that, because Liz Zamorski even said, doing the pulling the cards, she was like, this is when everything comes into manifestation. This is when you get to pick the fruit in April. So that sounds exciting. Yeah. It sounds like we're all saying the same thing.
And another observation from the last probably 10 days in my communication with close friends, my communications with clients, I think it's a double whammy of this channel of initiation currently being on, plus Saturn and Gate 55, which I'm slightly obsessed with, and we'll talk about it more. It's my take is a huge rise in the awareness of the father wound. Like the person who was supposed to be stable, reliable, to provide for us, to support us in our youth, in our early childhood, if that male figure didn't do that, my guess is that you've noticed an increase in your awareness being focused on that in the last week or so.
It's
literally, it's all I can talk about with anyone. It's father wound, father wound, father wound, father wound.
I wouldn't have articulated it as father wound, but it's been all about my dad. All about my dad. It's all I've been talking, like not all, but there's been so much that I've been talking about him this week. So crazy.
Yeah, it's dad's all the way. I mean, like you say, it might not be a wound, because some people don't have a particularly have had a great relationship with their father, whether he's still here or not. And but that's, I feel like if I look at Saturn, which to me is the archetype of this structure, and usually it's the father that is the father figure, we're talking archetypes, that's designed for the structure, the yang that holds the yin, if you like. With Gate 55, it seems like, and also when you look at it from the Gene Keys perspective, this idea of victimization or feeling like a victim into freedom, I think that's what's causing this rise in, I need to break this. I need to look at this. Actually, some people are just looking at it for the first time and being like, hang on a minute. I don't think I had a very good relationship with my dad, and I may have disassociated from that. There's a lot for me. There's a lot of that coming up. And I wonder about this, the 5125, the channel of initiation, has the keynote, a design of needing to be first. And it's part of the mystical way. And so I'm again wondering, is it, okay, I'll be the first to break this pattern of emotional trauma. I need to do this. Actually, I can't be a victim of this anymore. I want to be free. So someone's got to be first. Someone's got to do this work. I'll do it.
I love that. I even see it like from this other point of view, like instead of it being the father wound, I very much have felt like there's so much of my life that I live because he didn't get to, because he made choices that kept him, locked down psychically, emotionally, all of that sort of stuff. So I totally resonate. A little bit of a nuance, but yeah, I resonate with that. Like very much feel like his energy, like also he's like been with me everywhere. Like I can feel his energy everywhere. I told the story at the retreat about how the kookaburra is his totem. And literally as I'm leading a meditation and I say the words, what can you hear? A kookaburra just goes off. I'm like, stop it. So he's just been here so much, and definitely resonate with so much of that, because I do feel like I'm fulfilling a lot of his dreams. Obviously they're my dreams too, but yeah, that really resonates.
Yeah, so nice. That's such a nice take on it. Yeah. So fathers and deep spirit, this 55, this incredible gene key that I read this week. I hadn't quite clocked, the talk about the mutation in the solar plexus coming, that apparently someone's take on it was the 49 and the 59 merge into one gate
Nice.
as part of the mutation. I hadn't heard that, but I heard it from someone who has very much spent a long time studying this 2027 prophecy. So interesting, because they're so close. We talked about Saturn in 49 in relation to the whole Harry royal family. These are my principles, this is how we relate emotionally. I'm not standing for less than this. So yeah, that's been another really interesting observation as we go into late March, early April. I'm seeing this. Okay, we've got another whole month of Saturn in 55. This is interesting. I think if we talk about April as a whole from the sun's perspective, the ego gates that sun goes into. So I'll give you the dates: 30th of March to the 4th of April, the sun in gate 21, and then 5th to the 10th of April, sun in gate 51. So 21 is called the biting through in the I Ching. It's the gate that says, what does it bite through? It bites through the fluff, if you like, the extraneous that are not necessary, and it is often associated with control. So it's like, all right, enough talk, more action. I'm going to bite through all this chat and I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to take action. I'm going to take control. This is wasting precious time and resources. Let's just get on with it. It's that kind of biting through energy. Like like we were just saying, I think April might be when we get to actually do something, because I think gate 21 is going to go, enough, let's go.
Awesome. Sign me up. I love a bit of action taking.
I know you do. I thought you'd like that. So for example, here's an example. It's not quite there yet, but who else is in 21? Someone else is in 21. God, I'm sorry, I'm slightly deranged this morning. Jupiter was just in 21. It's gone out now, but there's that I'm really feeling that energy of taking action. And every year they spray, the council sprays our verges with pesticides so that all the grass goes brown and all of that. So I took action. I sent angry letters to my councillors, emails, and they got back to me and said, we'll look into this for you.
Awesome.
So it's that kind of energy, like, okay, I'm sick of staring at this brown grass and knowing that there's now loads more chemicals flowing around in the water. I'm going to take action. I'm going to try and put a stop to this.
Oh, I like it.
So whatever it is that you need to bite through and just do the thing, first week of April, very important in that respect.
Oh, I love that.
The sun in 51 is going to conjunct Jupiter in 51 and Chiron in 51. So the three of them, the shining light, the abundance, and the wounded healer, are all in gate 51. Gate 51 being the gate of shock. Just been talking about it in relation to the channel of initiation. The 51 on its own is a leaping forward, competitive kind of I'll do it kind of energy, or I need to do it. And so in its immature, its expression, it's very, I'm going to be first, I'm going to do it first, I'm going to be better than you kind of competition energy. But if you look at where it leaps towards, gate 25, the gate of universal love, and again, I said it's part of the mystical way, which I'll talk about in a minute, I think, is this process of all this tribal emotional energy. Like the mystical way goes through the 1949, the 3740. It's this profound need for God, need to believe in the same thing, need to commune with people who believe in the same thing. This is where we get these tribal religious, or like even semi-religious, if you think of a political party as a religious figure almost, this devotional, emotional tribalism, which is the lower, the base expression of unity or connectedness. We feel belonging, we feel connected. I find it easier to love people who love the same things that I love, like my connection to other people who enjoy Buddhist practice, or particularly like my Buddhist teacher, we love each other because we love the same thing. So it's, you know, that's what that tribal mystical way is about. It's about loving the same thing and being devoted to the same thing. Like you have a child with someone and you both love that child. And so you feel more connected to each other because you both love the same thing a lot, you know? So that's one aspect of love, personal tribal love, but that is also exclusionary and divisive because it says, okay, but if we all love this thing and those people don't love the same thing, then we can't love them because they love a different thing. And this is what part of the evolution of human consciousness. Yes, we have to learn to love and learn to be devoted at a material level, but then we also need to expand the boundaries of that. And that's where this channel from 51 to 25 comes in, because it says it's individual circuitry for a start. It's part of the centering circuit, and it's not tribal anymore. It says, hang on a minute, universal love. Hang on a minute, the medicine we need here is love. Maybe it's possible that I could love everyone. Maybe I can also see that I have so much unloved pain inside me. I'm not going to wait for anyone to love my wounded parts. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be first. I'm going to love me more completely than anyone has ever been able to. And then from that perspective, maybe I could love everyone else, because I'm not seeking love from my tribal bonds. I'm seeking it. It's already here, you know?
I love that. I'm literally, as you're like talking through it, I'm just going through that process of just putting it into practice in my life, or seeing the examples in my life. So I love it. It's so good. And I don't know if you can hear that, but there's like a gardener out there going crazy. So I'm going back on mute.
All right. Well, it's just me now, guys. No response from them. So I've going back over the mystical way, which, like I'm describing to you all, 1949, 3740, 5125. Like if you follow that, like if you want to get a body graph out, draw that through, it exits 1020, channel of awakening. So in case anyone's wondered, why is the 1020 called the channel of awakening? It's because it's the top end of the mystical way. And what is the profoundest expression of mystical experience? It's awakening. So that's the process that describes humanity's journey through mystical or spiritual evolution. It's this kind of mapped out in the body graph. So, you know, you can all assess where you feel that you're at perhaps on that mystical journey, whether you're still very much in this very close, bonded kind of exclusionary love, or whether you feel like it's moving into a more communal love in the channel of community, or whether you're like actually getting to this point of like, okay, I'm going to love regardless, I'm going to love without these definitions, these labels, or these needs, this need for commonality. Like, I don't need this person or even this part of me to agree with my principles for me to love them or it. You know, that's where we've got to get to, because tribal love will always be exclusionary, and therefore it will always be limited. That is my, you know, you've got Jupiter in there, Chiron in there. Universal love is the only medicine we really need at this time, and the more of us that are able to embody that, the better, you know. So that's the first part of April up to the 10th. She questions herself. 10th, yes, yeah. So that takes us up to the 10th of April. After that, the sun's going into its sacral process. The sacral gates will be gate 42, gate 3, and gate 27. 42, the gate of growth through closing of a cycle. In the Northern Hemisphere, I think this is very, you know, much related to the final closing of the winter cycle. We rarely get snow or frosts after, and certainly where I live, after that part of April. So for you guys, closing of the summer cycle, that feeling of, okay, we're really starting to bed in now.
Yeah.
But then, you know, in terms of what else, like it's a collective circuitry. So it might be the final nail in the coffin for certain cycles, or at least the final nail in the coffin for this iteration. Everything goes in cycles. It always comes around again. I don't know if you guys have noticed that you're never quite done with a thing. It always comes back in some form.
Yeah.
So I think it's a nice way to talk about the pairing. The 42 is always paired with the 32 in its, what they call them, programming partner, and Earth, so the Earth will be in 32, and the 32 knows what can continue, what can't. Like, what are we taking forward? What is like done? What do we need to preserve or conserve? What is sustainable and what is no longer sustainable? And so there's that. It's an interesting week in the middle of April for real kind of assessment, I think, of what we're taking forward and what we really need to put to bed. Gate 3, the gate of ordering, will make a channel with Pluto. Pluto's still out in gate 60. So we will get this potential mutative pulse collectively for everyone, but it's all about individual transformation. So when this pulses, it can really bring a new iteration of something. You know, a mutation is surprising, unpredictable, can be quite, quite a process to make sense of. But that channel is then on towards the end of April. And both of them together, when I look at that like little couplet as a 10-day process, I've recently come across a project that I think is a really good example of these energies, which is the best of the old with the best of the new. That's why I think, when you get the close at the 42 and the 32, and then you get the 6 and the 3, where they're part of the cross of laws, which is all about maintaining, this is the way it's always been done, no dinosaur, but then also, oh, hang on a minute, we'll have to evolve this. I don't know why I turned into an Oxford professor.
I don't know, but
So the project that I found was a project called the Free Press. I don't know if you've heard of it, Emma. It's an American project, journalistic project that maintains the values of journalists and journalism, where like fact checking, careful assessment of a variety of viewpoints, that kind of the foundation of responsible journalism and responsible news processes, whilst also embracing the possibilities of new media, like the possibilities of podcasts and the possibility of independent news outlets, which were impossible for a very long time. The news was very tightly controlled, and now we're in this, they describe it as a Wild West. I don't think they're far from the mark. It is a Wild West of information. If you think about the early days of the Wild West comes from the colonization of the North American continent, where it's a free-for-all. We haven't figured out the rules yet. Nobody really knows what's working, what's not working, how to, everyone's just every man for himself. My voice is as important as your voice, that kind of place that we're in. So when you look at the media landscape in that respect, it's got its pluses and minuses. So I really like this project, the Free Press, where they're like, okay, we do need to have some journalistic integrity here. We do need to make sure that anything we print actually is based in fact and well-researched fact. And we also don't, they very much don't want to be polarizing. So they're like, we don't want to be in a position where we are dividing people rather than uniting people. We want to be able to show all kinds of different viewpoints. So it's just, for me, look, I've just got obsessed, and I read basically everything on their website.
Yeah, I could go check it out. I love the sound of it. Sounds brilliant.
They've just released a mini, they're in the process of releasing a mini podcast series called The Witch Hunts of J.K. Rowling. Unbelievably interesting, looking at all of the aspects of that whole feminism versus trans rights kind of media landscape. They really, it's good stuff, if you actually want decent news that's well researched and very balanced. It's like, it was like a breath of fresh air, like a sigh of relief, because the rise in conspiracy theories and extreme points of view is as a result of us being like, I don't actually know what I'm supposed to believe. Like, I don't know who I can trust. I don't know if what I'm reading or seeing or hearing has any basis in anything other than one subjective viewpoint. Yeah. So I'm obviously a pure collective being. Both of my channels are collective. So I'm much more interested in the thing, the uniting force, if you like, the generalized rather than the specified viewpoint. So So I've just, as I was reflecting on these energies of, okay, what would it look like to embrace the new but keep the values of the old? And then I found this project and I'm like, oh, it'd probably look a bit like that, you know?
Oh, I love that.
So also what's interesting is they're called the free press, as in free. They want to keep their opinions kind of free, if you like, but what they did was look at the old model, as in, why can't these journalists freely speak about things? And it's because of the fact that they're free. Like, if you don't pay for something, then they have to make their money somewhere, and therefore the advertisers or the political parties or whoever is giving them the money gets to dictate the message or the content. So I liked the irony of it being called the free press, but you actually have to subscribe and pay for it so that they don't have to rely on,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that was the original plan, wasn't it? That's why in Australia we have the ABC, but that's not. Anyway.
No. Everything gets corrupted over time. Yes. Yeah. Everything gets corrupted over time. But it's like, when I'm thinking about, okay, let's have a practical real world example of building something new on the foundations of something, like keeping the best bits, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of vibe. Something like that.
Sounds great. I'm going to be checking it out.
I want to share something really amazing with you. And it's actually one of our new Millions of Millionaires sponsors. So to introduce this body graph chart software that we've been using that's been mind-blowing. So I want to welcome the amazing Taylor Dyson, who is my incredible operations manager. Welcome along, Taylor.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. This is actually something that we implemented when?
April.
Yeah.
And this year.
We were just trialing it out because they'd reached out to us in regards to sponsoring the podcast or something like that, wasn't it? And so it kind of wasn't even on our radar, and we tried it out and we had such low expectations. And then what happened?
Well, I remember sending you a message going, Emma, why are we not using this? Because I was mind blown. We get a lot of requests for stuff like that. And, there's new softwares all the time. And I clicked on it, like you said, with very low expectations. And I started looking through what they can do. And I got so excited. The MG in me was like, oh my God, we have to use this. And I saw the potential of it. And it has delivered more than expected. It's really awesome.
Amazing. Now, before we get into the actual numbers, because I know numbers with Taylor is a thing in our business. She loves to share all the numbers. Let's just tell the listeners exactly who it's for and what it is.
Yeah, so it's a great tool for anyone who uses human design in their business. So if you're a human design reader, a human design coach, or just someone who uses human design in your business, if you incorporate it into whatever you do, it's a way for you to embed an actual human design chart tool into your website. So, if you want someone to get their human design chart, you probably send them to an outside platform somewhere, go to this website, put in your details and get your chart, whatever that platform might be. There's a couple big ones. And what's cool about this is that it allows you to put that tool on your own website and it's yours. So when someone comes and, puts their information into your website, they get their chart, and then you can hook it up to your email list, to your newsletter. You can have it linked to your own content. You can customize the reports afterwards that they get, so it's your own descriptions of what, this type is or this profile. So that's kind of what it is.
Oh my God, I love it. And it's so cool because I actually remember when Jenna Zoe, because it must be the same software that Jenna Zoe used and before anyone else. Yeah, right. And I was always like, wow, her chart looks so beautiful and it's on her website. That's so cool. So yeah, when we started using it, I was like, this is beautiful. I'm really excited that we can do it. But let's talk hard numbers. Like, we have had some serious success with this, just adding this to our business. So tell everyone a little bit about the growth that we've experienced through using this.
Yeah. So since implementing it into our website in April, there have been over 4,000 people that have downloaded their chart through the website. And that's unique. That's not, someone who does it twice, because a lot of people, they'll go back because they won't download the PDF or something, or they lost it or misplaced it. That's unique chart downloads. So it's even more for people doing it twice. And it's been really amazing. It's more than tripled the size of the email list. And, you can set up sequences afterwards for people to, give them more information and keep everything in-house.
Yeah. And because one of the really big things for us is obviously human design made simple. So it gives us the opportunity to give our way of teaching human design directly to the people who want it. And I love that. I love that every single person that wants to get their chart, that downloads it, we can then support them on their journey straight away, which is, of course, what you set up, because you're amazing, to make sure that not only do they get their chart, but they also get this support, free content support that helps them as they're new to human design and on their journey. So beautiful. So how do people access this? What's it called? And I know that there's a benefit for listeners of the podcast.
Yes. So you can go to the link in the show notes, or you can go to bodygraphchart.com. And they have been kind enough to give the listeners of the Human Design Podcast a 50% off discount for 12 months, which is huge because it's already inexpensive to begin with. And then the 50% discount is going to put it at $25 a month. That's in US dollars. So wherever you are in the world, it'll be, a little bit different, but 50% off for 12 months. And the code is Human Design Podcast. And we'll put that in the show notes too for everyone. And one of the other things I want to say that's really cool about this chart tool is that it's 100% customizable, and it actually gives Chiron and the 4 arrows, which is what a lot of chart tools don't do that. So that's one thing that a lot of people are drawn to when they go to get our chart from our website is, I can get the arrows because of it, or my Chiron gates.
I love that. It's so cool. So check out the show notes, people. Get on it, because really it is such a powerful and, as Taylor says, inexpensive tool. Like, it paid for itself in the first 2 days, I seem to remember, or first day, I seem to remember. So it's so valuable, and it gives you the opportunity to really build your brand and your communication with your clients. So thank you. Go check it out.
So I think that process, it doesn't have to apply to something as big as a news organization. We can apply that to every single part of our lives, and probably will be, and probably might find ourselves in a situation where we have to be. So it's about assessment of everything. What they've done is, what was this originally intended for, as in journalism, news? Well, to tell people what's going on. Is it still able to do that? If not, what's preventing it? So you can apply that formula. What was and you get into a relationship. And then after a while, you're like, hang on, why did we get in here? What did we want to provide for each other? Can we still do that? If not, why not? What needs to change to keep or to preserve the essence of why we wanted to be together in the first place? Or maybe that's evolved. Anything, a piece of furniture, piece of clothing. Hang on, why did I get that? What purpose did that serve me? Does it still serve that purpose? If not, what needs to happen for it to serve the purpose, or has it served its time? So it's like this life audit kind of energy, if you like.
Yeah, I love that. Making space. And it just feels like a really honest time as well. Time to get super honest with yourself.
Yeah. And because it's not emotional, because it's kind of over root, sacral, spleen, it can be quite an individual, it's can be quite clean, and just this, we started this for this. Is it still doing it? Yes and no. Okay. Yeah, let's assess it. Let's actually do a bit of an audit of the things in our lives that niggle. It's the niggles, I think.
I like that, the niggles.
So it's a bit of a niggle assessment period in middle to late April. And then the last sun gate is the gate of caring, the gate 27. So the gate of nourishment, I'm going to talk about this a lot now, because it's got nodes, it's got Mercury retrograde, it's got the whole vibe in gate 27. So that is about looking out for ourselves, looking after ourselves, looking to nourish. If say, for example, you are in a relationship and you just did a life audit, and your relationship is actually having to go through a growth period or a change period, or you're both trying to figure out the new way, the 27 comes in and reminds each of us of the importance of caring for and nourishing this new thing that we're trying to foster into the world. So I'm pretty sure I said this last year, April is a potent month for new beginnings, transformational endings, and personal growth. Actually,
I love that
happening.
Yeah, I love that. Bring it on. Far out. Yeah. I feel like I've been doing a lot of work in the background, so I'm excited.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. March was background month. and January and February, like the whole gang, background month. So this 27, we spoke last time about the 28, the position of the South Node currently, the 5-month nodal transit in the 27-28 polarity. As we start to move into the second half of the nodal transit, we start to then look towards the North Node, because that's usually the transition, the trajectory or the direction we look in, south to north. Same in your body graph. South tends to be the dominant environment when you're pre-Uranus opposition, post-Uranus opposition at around 42, we get this kind of upswell of the North Node. So the North Node in 27, last time we looked at the 28 from the Gene Keys perspective. I'll do the same. The 27 has the shadow of selfishness, the gift of altruism, and the siddhi of selflessness, which are interesting topics and slightly polarizing definitions. I think when we think of those words, we all have a lot of assumptions about what that means in our lives. One of the first passages in the Gene Keys book, which I'll read now, kind of gets to the heart of the matter very quickly, I think. So Richard Rudd says, all the different systems on this planet are interconnected. There is an entire mathematics of giving and receiving that unites all forms and is primarily based on food. Life is a living chain of birth and decay, all creatures living off each other and transforming one thing's death into another thing's birth. At the profoundest level, nothing exists unless it can be eaten by something else.
I love that.
Right?
Straight to the point. But yeah,
Straight to the point, Richard.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, which is pretty, it's a lens that you can look at the world through and say, yes, that appears to be accurate. It then also kind of governs the idea of good and bad. So we might say at the simplest level, like at the amoebic level, the cellular level, eating, good. Getting eaten, bad. Like I'm unlikely to get eaten by a large predator like a tiger living here in suburbia, but if I'm dead, I will definitely be getting eaten by bacteria and insects, that's for sure. So and when you look at where 27 is in the body graph, it's in the defense circuit, right in the center of the core of life. These are the core life principles. 59-6, channel a mating over on the other side, make babies, create new life, multiply. And over on the other side, okay, let's try and preserve this thing we've created for as long as possible. But for biological life forms, that means let's eat stuff. Let's stay alive and eat stuff. Yeah, which could be a slogan. Let's be a slogan for humanity: stay alive and eat stuff.
Yeah, love it.
So these are deep impulses at work within us that want to eat and not get eaten. But if we look at that original thought, the beginning of that thought by Richard Rudd, where he talks about the interconnectedness of all things, at the levels of altruism and selflessness, the gift and the siddhi levels, one would have such a profound understanding of this interconnected web of life that we may not be concerned if we personally or individually stay alive. Just that the cycle of life continues, it's that kind of vibe, it's that kind of energy that we're addressing. So there's a famous teaching story, which I don't think I've shared on this podcast before, so I'm not going to say stop me if I have, because I'm going to tell it anyway. But
no, I want to hear it again.
It's about part of the apocryphal story of how the Buddha attained enlightenment over many, many lifetimes of working towards it. And one of the factors was said to have taken place in one of his former incarnations, where he was a spiritual teacher called Prince Sattva. And Prince Sattva was out in the forest in India, lots of tigers in India. And he came upon a mother tiger. Actually, it was probably Nepal at the time. But he came upon a mother tiger who had not managed to find enough food for her and her cubs, and she and they were starving. And in his infinite wisdom and compassion and seeing the interconnectedness of all things, he saw that this mother tiger was preparing to eat her own cubs out of desperation because she was going to starve. And legend has it that he realized, oh, I could feed her my body. Apparently there was a convenient cliff nearby, and he gave his body to her. He decided to end his incarnation and give it to this mother tiger, so she wouldn't have to eat her own cubs. This is said to be the perfecting of his own altruism, selflessness, and generosity, so that when he was born as Prince Siddhartha in the next life, or whichever life it was, he had perfected that aspect of his wisdom and generosity. So that's an extreme example. But
yeah, so don't go feeding yourself to tigers, people, but
get the bigger
metaphor.
To feed yourself. Yes, the bigger metaphor being, we all know someone that gives selflessly, tirelessly, and at the expense of their own health. Everyone knows someone like that. Everyone knows someone that gives so much to other people that they end up getting very sick themselves. And potentially, I have also had friends that have had numerous cancers and died from overgiving, basically.
Yeah.
So we talked maybe last podcast or the one before about my vision for a world where people could support each other without being depleted.
Yeah.
I'm going into some very deep topics, and very potentially kind of emotionally strong topics, or like maybe not even emotional, just viscerally strong topics. But the point is that there is no good and bad other than the human thinking mind. So I would prefer it, as in my preference is for people to give from a place of feeling nourished themselves. But then this gene key allows me to question it, or at least acknowledge the paradox that perhaps some people, through feeling so deeply spiritually nourished or collectively nourished by their overgiving, their giving to the detriment of their own body, for them, perhaps that slightly premature demise is it's a perfectly reasonable price to pay. You know, it could be the viewpoint that says, you know what, this body's going to end its life anyway and be delicious worm food at some point. So what does it matter if that's a couple of years earlier? Well, if I feed the worms a couple of years earlier and I've made the lives of all these people around me so much easier and so much better. I'm not saying there's a good or a bad or right or wrong. I'm just saying that is what this energy invites us to consider.
Yeah.
What is caring? What is nourishment? And what about the interconnected web of all things?
Yeah.
But the long and short of the 27 is over the next sort of 3 months, and specifically towards the end of April, 27 is getting a big old highlight. And it's about the middle way. You know, the Buddha's ultimate realization was it's a middle way. You don't utterly decimate the body and you don't absolutely pamper the body. You find a middle way. You nourish yourself, you nourish others, and it's somewhere in the middle, you know?
Yeah. And the one thing I'll respond to on that I think is important is that I feel like if we bring this into, you know, a lot of our personal experiences, you know, whether it's building a business, sometimes we need to hustle and sometimes we need to take care of ourselves. Sometimes we do need to push through, and other times we need to surrender and flow. You know, that's where I sort of bring it into that practicality. Like sometimes we do have to put others before us, even though we're tired and run down. And other times we get to put those boundaries in place and fill our own cups up so that we can give more at the other side. You know, that's how it really feels for me. Yeah. Like we so often do preach polarities in this world, and especially in the personal development world. And I think that that's what the lesson is, that there isn't a polarity, that if you're taking two, and I do like inverted commas or, you know, speech things, whatever you call them. Like if you're doing too much self-care, then maybe you do need to get off your ass and hustle a little bit. If you are being too self-focused, then maybe you do need to get up and think about someone else for a moment. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that there is that middle path is the way to, and this is the way. We're watching the Mandalorian at the moment, and you can tell the people that watch it, because as soon as you say it, it's like, this is the way.
Excellent response. Agreed. It's like the tides of the ocean. There's a season for this and a season for this, a time for this, and we just have to be aware enough and wise enough to know which one that is.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, this is sacral energy, and there's not that much awareness in the sacral center. It's a motor. So, yes. So that theme, big in April, but we've got a few months on it. So let's talk Mercury retrograde. Shall I recap on what a retrograde is and why it matters and why Mercury is a big deal or not?
Yeah, I reckon just do a quickie.
I mean, I'll try. Never been quick in my life, Emma. So a retrograde motion is when a celestial body, from our perspective here on Earth, watching it move, it seems to stop moving forwards and start going backwards, and that is definitely in inverted commas. You can look at Wikipedia's apparent retrograde motion page, and it will tell you, and with diagrams and lengthy explanations about what is apparent retrograde motion, if you're interested in the mechanics of it. So I don't need to explain apparent retrograde motion to you, but you can look on Wikipedia and it will tell you. So Mercury, why does everyone get all the knickers in the twist about Mercury being retrograde? I think it has a reputation for a couple of reasons. One is it usually moves in direct motion pretty quickly. And so 3 times a year, give or take, it appears to retrograde and slow down and stop in the sky. And that's unusual. So if you're an astrologer or an astronomer looking at celestial patterns, you're like, hang on a minute, that's breaking the pattern. That doesn't usually do that. That's weird. So it's that kind of unusualness. And Mercury as an archetype governs speech, communication. Increasingly, we communicate via technology. So it also governs, technology. And I think it also governs action, like doing stuff. So our ability to communicate, or our ability to operate at the speed that we normally operate at, like quite often if you're used to going at 100 miles an hour, when Mercury's retrograde, everything gets like roadblocks, obstacles in the way, stuff goes wrong.
Things blow up, right?
Yeah, you basically need to allow more time for stuff to get done, because you have to allow this kind of window for disaster of some description. Like I remember one of the last Mercury retrogrades where I was stuck in a lengthy traffic jam, like literally gridlock around a ferry port trying to get on a ferry in southern France. And I was like, oh my God, this is so Mercury retrograde. So it's that kind of, and your hard drive or memory or whatever, your computer blew up in June 2021. Yeah.
Far out. We lost everything. So, that was awful. Yeah.
So it's everything that is normally quite smooth in the way that we communicate and run our lives. In Mercury retrograde, it seems to astrologers that everything's a bit more buggy, glitchy, or crashy,
I love it. I feel like we need to have, just in the show notes, I feel like we need to have all the Jenni-isms, because you've come up with some great terms this episode. I'm loving it.
What, buggy, glitchy, and crashy? Like the three dwarves.
Yeah, but there was another one. What did you say? Yeah.
I can't remember. So that's coming up towards the end of the month. I'll give you dates in a minute. I would also just mention that some people actually feel more at home in Mercury retrograde periods than normal, and that and I've had this conversation with a few people who'd be like, I feel great. What are you on about? Everything feels wonderful. And then you look at their birth chart and their natal Mercury is retrograde. So if you were born during a Mercury retrograde, it may be that you actually feel more normal, more usual in this than not. So it's all just interesting information to see how you feel. As always, you don't need to create an idea in your mind of how you're going to feel. Just see how you feel.
Yeah, it fascinates me, because I, like, other than the 2021 incident, I've never had a great deal of an experience, like a negative experience with Mercury retrograde. But then part of me also thinks maybe I was just completely unconscious to it, and the more conscious I've become, the more I'm aware of it. I don't know.
Me being the massive over preparing geek that I am, I did look back at your natal placements for that June 21 Mercury retrograde, because I'm a weirdo like that.
I love it.
It wasn't transiting anything particularly in your chart that was of any significance from my perspective, but that retrograde was in Gemini, which is Mercury rules Gemini as one of its signs. It was also conjunct Venus and Cazimi the Sun, as in it was like in the same conjunct and Cazimi, it's the same thing. Like it was all just Venus, the Sun, Mercury retrograde, close to the new moon eclipse. So I just think you got hit by a big one, is what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
in your specific natal chart, I couldn't see anything that looked like it might be influential, but there was that retrograde generally was like, they were saying it's the most powerful Mercury retrograde in decades or whatever. So yeah. I don't think that's the case for this one, but my interest in this, so I'll give you the dates for those with their journals out paying attention. Gate 27 is where Mercury starts to slow down and enter its pre-retrograde shadow from the 5th to the 8th of April. Gate 24, it's slowing down even further, 9th to the 14th of April. Gate 2, it enters on the 15th of April. It stations retrograde on the 21st of April until the 28th in Gate 2. It will then, retrograde will carry it back through 24 from the 29th of May to the 7th of May and back into 27 on the 8th of May, where it will station direct on the 15th of May. That's lots of information, but to say 27, 24, 2 are the gates that are going to be affected by retrograde.
So would it be fair to say that potentially the lessons that you are learning through those gates, 27, what did you say?
24.
Thank you.
2.
27, 24, 2, then you're potentially going to go back over those lessons. Like they could be themes that come around again.
It has 3 passes, basically. It slows down as it's going into them, then it retrogrades back through them, and then it has to go direct back through them all again to get into its normal forward motion. So it has a little wobble over those 3 gates. What jumps out, so I was looking at these 3, and what jumped out for me is actually their hexagram structure. So if you look at the Wheel of the Year 2, then you will be able to see it's in the, let me think, where is it? Southwest? Yeah, southwest part of the chart, where you see the line coming down between thunder and earth. So if you look at the hexagram structure, you will see gate 27, the gate of caring and nourishment, has 4 yin lines and 2 yang lines. The next gate, 24, has 5 yin lines and 1 yang line. And then the next gate, gate 2, is all yin, no yang, 6 yin lines. So there's a lot of yin in those 3 gates, pretty much as you can get. And Uranus is still in gate 2 while Mercury is retrograde in gate 2. They don't exactly conjunct because Uranus is in line 6, Mercury only goes 1, 2, 3, but it's close. And Uranus is in its last pass of gate 2, and we've talked about that many times on the podcast about the influence of this bringing the new in the gate of the pure feminine, the pure receptive, the pure yin. So my take on this from that kind of yinish, there's another one, yinish perspective.
Yeah, there we go.
Is yet more emphasis on the feminine, on the receptive, on a new direction, on this theme of, I find technology and the digital world mostly yang. That's what it feels like to me. It doesn't feel as receptive as material world, the earth, the trees, the springs, the clouds. That feels like yin energy to me, and digital energy feels quite yang to me. Yeah. So my take on this is an increasing emphasis on connection to the sacred, the waters, the depths, the yin,
nature.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I think certainly I've felt a deep increase in my personal life, like less and less interest in spending time in the digital world, more and more interest in being very physical, very practical, very hands-on. Like when I let my body do what my body wants to do, it doesn't get online and do anything. It just potters around in the house and the garden.
I totally resonate with that, especially after doing an in-person retreat. I'm just like, I just want to do that now. I just want to be with real people in nature. Completely, 100%. I mean, that is, I think, where we're going. Even though if you look at the way technology is going, you think, oh my God, are we going into a digital utopia, dystopia? I don't think we are. I don't think so either.
I think many more of us are being called back to the land, back to the earth, and back to our connection to it, because it makes us feel so real and so good.
Yeah, and alive.
Yes, alive.
I so agree. I think, again, it's all just part of the people that at the moment have the loudest voices, you know, that are banging on about this digital reality. But like, seriously.
Nobody's happy in there. Come on, no one's happy in there.
No, they're not. They're just, they're covering up their pain, you know, like, anyway. It's,
I mean, we could, that's a whole rabbit hole we could go down.
Exactly. I totally agree. I think that it's definitely, that's how I feel. Like, the more I can be in nature or with people, that's the way.
Yeah, really is. So however that manifests for you, whatever it is that's been calling you, like I got called to Glastonbury last week. You went to Uluru the year before? Relatively recently. Which is the solar plexus chakra of the world. Is that correct?
I think so. It's that or the sacral. I always get it confused.
I think it's solar plexus, because I think sacral.
There you go. But it was,
I'm not sure, but one of the main chakras. So Glastonbury is the heart chakra. And I went and so this is the point I want to make about the absence of digital, the absence of technology, the absence of being watched. At Glastonbury White Spring, which is one of the 2 sacred springs in Glastonbury, you can strip naked in public and bathe in the waters if you want. And it's a no camera, no phone, no digital zone. There are no cameras in there. So the only people looking at you are the people that are in there. And that is so liberating. There's very few spaces, I think, now where we're never being watched. We know that it's just us and the spirits and the other humans, you know?
Yeah.
So again, I feel like we can't quite necessarily perceive what it's doing to us psychologically to feel like we're always being watched. But I think it's not necessarily enjoyable.
No, I agree. I think I think it's definitely having a negative impact on all of us. I think, you know, we're seeing a lot of mental health, ADHD, all of those sort of things. And I think potentially that's all part of it, you know?
Yeah.
Constantly in fight or flight.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I quite like to have a little rant about that, and maybe I will.
You go for it.
So the last thing I want to talk, is it the last thing I want to talk about? Get my notes. Yes, this is the last thing I want to talk about, is Saturn in gate 55. As I mentioned earlier, I'm slightly obsessed with it. So I want to talk about it in terms of the father thing, the bringing awareness and spirit to daddy issues, or daddy love, or daddy as an archetype. Saturn is structure. It's the boundaries, it's the container, if you like. And gate 55 is an abundant spirit. Now, those two things feel very different in you know, one is rigid, one is utterly borderless. But I think another way to connect with this energy, or you might already be doing it, it's already been in that gate for 3 weeks, is structure around spirit, structure around our connection to spirit.
Stop it.
I'm talking rituals, people.
This is crazy. So this is literally something I'm working on right now, because my connection to spirit is it's almost like it's too loose, you know?
Yes.
So it's so funny you say that, because that's exactly the process I'm going through at the moment. And it sounds weird to structure it, but it's like getting really clear on each guide and how I connect to them and how they feel and what do they sound like and what do they feel like and what does my practice look like each day. And because so much of it's just been so loose. So I totally resonate with that.
I mean, no choice, said the voice. I know. I think we do have choice, but also we're very influenced, you know. So I'm exactly the same place, Emma. How can I structure my connection to spirit, my connection to the intangible, the ineffable, I like? It's hard.
Yeah, it feels really weird and awkward, and like, we even do that? Like, I totally resonate.
So I think we should. Is my
I agree.
Take on it, because I think one of the things that we can acknowledge is that we have lost, for the most part, our ritual structures around connection to spirit, or they've been co-opted by power hungry institutions who want to mediate our relationship. So you can do the church rituals, or you can do the Buddhist rituals, or you can do the whatever's rituals, and that's the correct way to connect to spirit. But if you do it yourself, you're doing it wrong, or you don't know what you're doing. Now, there is possibly some truth in that. I'm you know, the shamans would say yes, you would need to be careful what you're connecting with, the intention. You're like, if you're going to deliberately connect with energies, you might want to get some information about how to do that safely. But broadly speaking, especially if it's your connection to the earth, which is very tangible and very real and very obvious because you can see her and you can feel her, and you can literally put your hands inside her body by getting handfuls of soil or water. Like, the earth, connection to the earth, I think, is the safest, easiest ritualized connection we can do, because it's obvious what it is. So lighting a candle, offering some water or fruit, making a little altar somewhere. Maybe you find a nice feather on a wall.
I just did another one. Fucking hell. I feel like this is everything that's happening in my life right now.
It's because it's what's happening, you know? And probably everyone listening to this is going, oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of sacrals giving it a heart right now.
So one thing I will say about this, I think it's alchemical magic to perform these little rituals. I think we often think about, what am I supposed to be thinking about or doing with my mind while I'm doing this? And my take on that is, you don't need to do anything with your mind. You just do the ritual, you embody it. The lighting of the candle, or the putting of the flower or the feather or whatever on the altar, or just placing your hands on the earth and smiling or opening your heart is the thing. Your mind doesn't need to be involved. This is a physical act between your body and the material world and all of that. I think we can get a little bit lost or confused or scared about the mind's job in all of this. Yeah. The ritual is the thing. It's alchemical magic. Your actions speak louder than words, right? It's like, just do the thing. The other thing I will sort of say in relation to this is, if you have a strong digital relationship with your Instagram account, for example, you might be tempted to take a picture of every single little sacred ritual act that you do and post it online. And I would say, make sure you have some that you don't film. Make sure you have some relationship to the earth that is private, for your eyes only, no one is watching, because it changes the relationship. If you're watching yourself, as in by filming or taking a picture of yourself, or if anyone around you is watching or filming you, if you're doing it privately, personally, just you and the earth, there is the potential for connection that I believe does not exist if it's being filmed.
I love that, because that instantly takes me into that place of, like, it's almost the extension of the observer effect, because the observer becomes more than just you, the witness. It's the greater.
Yes.
And I love that. You know, as you were speaking, I literally took a photo of my altar this morning, or the other morning, in an attempt to go, oh, this might be interesting to share. But yet it doesn't feel natural. And on the other side of that coin, one of the things that I've done so much recently is, every time I go out for a swim or a surf, in the past, I would take my phone just in case I want to lie on the beach and listen to something, or, every now and then I'll take a photo. And like recently I've just been unable to, like, I just don't want it there. And it's so funny, because when you were talking about the witnessing piece, or not, you weren't using that word, but the observing piece, I'm like, yes, oh my God, because it's so freeing to be without it. It's so freeing. Yeah. I mean, I haven't even been on, for me personally, on retreat, I had this grand intention, as I always do, to put all the things up on Instagram so I can share the whole thing. But I'm sure it's my gate 9. It's like, I see nothing. I see nothing but what I physically can't do it. I physically can't post. So in the end, the girls end up posting on my Instagram, because I'm so in the experience. And as you're speaking, there's a part of me that just feels so seen and validated, like, oh my God, that's so good, because I try really hard to do these things, but I can't. It just doesn't feel.
I don't think we're allowed, is my interpretation of it. Like, there are things that should not be digitized, that should not be made available publicly. And this is like, I'm the opposite to you in terms of intention. Like, I don't want anyone with a camera anywhere near me. I don't want anyone filming it. I want everyone's phones off, preferably not in the house. Like, for my retreat, I'm like, I don't want to see a phone. I don't want them listening. I don't want anyone recording. Like, this is private. We get to have some experiences that are not available for Zuckerberg's bots.
Yeah,
just basically
I totally agree. And I mean, you know, for us with the retreat, like, one of the things that was so beautiful was exactly that happened organically. You know, like,
yes,
no one had phones, no one had anything. Even my photographer who came to take some photos, she's like, this is way too, what was the word? She didn't use the word intimate, but she's like, I can't be here, you know. So it was beautiful just to witness that happen organically. And I can't, like, there's part of me that's like, you know, take a photo to share it, you know. I just can't. I feel exactly the same way. It's like, this is sacred. Sacred is the word. Like, I'm just so
it is sacred. It is. And some things are sacred and should be sacred. And I'm not really saying this like as a judgment, because of course, you know, like with altars look pretty, and we like taking pictures of pretty things and sharing pretty things. Like I get it. But if you can restrain yourself from that impulse and open to the possibility that you personally, you spiritually, you are going to have a much richer experience with the freedom of no observer, of no digital observer. Like, the potential of this, if you think about the deep potential of communion, I mean, I'm just going to use a slightly out there example. Back in the day when I used to go to Ibiza, you had to hand your phone in at the door in space. They had these little lockers to keep your phone in. Most of the clubs had them. You were not allowed to take a phone into the venue. It was unbelievable, the energy that's created in those spaces where everyone is just them and the music. And I went back to Ibiza several years ago and went clubbing, and it was awful. It was all of the potential for a good experience was gone, because every single person was filming or live streaming the entire thing. So the whole thing is just a sea of phones. And I think most people have some experience, and it's like, you can no longer connect to the actual experience that you went there to have, because there are a million witnesses. It's awful. So
I totally hear what you're saying. And you know what it makes me think of as well? That balance piece that we were talking about, because we do live in this digitized world. Like, we do, like, for me, we have photos of our retreat. Absolutely. Like, I'm not an idiot. I need to make sure that I have to have some things so that we can, you know, have those things. So I do feel like there's this balance. We have to be really balanced. I think intention as well is a really big piece. Like, when I took my photo of my altar, I thought I should do it instead of, do I want to take a photo and share it? No. The most consistent thing that I do on my Instagram is the one thing I love to share. The intention is so pure, is whatever I see on my morning walk. I'm like, oh my God, this lights me up. I want to share this with the world. So Agreed. It is that fine line, you know, it's that balance. It's like, because the thing as you were speaking that really came to me is it's almost like the way I see the image in my mind is like, it's a crack in the ritual, in the experience. Because I mean, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, everybody else is asleep. I do exactly that. I light candles, I put on soft music, I meditate, I do all this sort of stuff. And it, as you say, it's not for anyone else. It's just that experience to be had for me. And I feel like, you know, what I'm taking away from what you're saying is just to be so aware of the intention. Like, is your intention because it's coming from the heart space that you want to share? And because some of us want to share. Like, I'm kind of in the middle, I would say. I'd say you're someone who's very private, and then there's going to be other people that potentially are very extroverted, and it feels so good for them to be sharing all the time. So I think it's that, you know, like, being really honest with yourself. And I know for me, like, honestly, over the retreat, everything that I personally posted,
And then this last week coming out of it, like, because there was so much integration, there was so much joy just sitting in my heart. I was like, yeah, I don't want to. I just want to sit and experience this, you know, post-retreat glow. So really checking in with where it's coming from. Like, what is this intention? Is this intention coming from alignment, or is it coming from like, I should do this?
Yeah. I think I'm speaking to the, you know, anyone who recognizes themselves in this discussion and has been wondering, why don't I have a deeply, profoundly moving, transformative experience when I do these rituals? My question would be, are you filming them? Are you being watched? Is it just you and the thing with in private, you know? Because the potential, I think, for these connecting to these, and I think they're technologies, you know, rituals are technologies, and they do have a potential to, you know, you do the thing, you go through the motions, you go through the actions, and a technology opens something up inside them, inside you. And I think I would like everyone to have had that experience, to know that their wildness, because there's a smallness and a compactness and a edited highlights thing about the digital image compared to the, you know, the real raw, naked round a fire, lying face down in the dirt, on your knees, hands in prayer, heart cracked open, tears streaming down your face, rawness of an actual connection to earth and to the sacred.
And you know what I want to add to that as well, because I think it's really important, because it's something that it's the difference that makes a difference for me. It's the stillness. Because for me personally, like, I am someone who, I have a busy body, a busy mind, a lot of energy. And the thing that I love the most about my ritual is the quiet and the still and the elegance of the energy and the subtle and all of those things. And as soon as there's anything, you know, outside of the focus being on me and my connection, the silence isn't there. There is no gap. There is no gap for the miracle or the whoever or whatever to come in and make life even better or have a crazy, amazing experience, you know, like, you know, a lot of my darker experience, or not darker, my more challenging experiences are in everyday life. Like, they just kind of pop up out of everywhere. So I think for me, it's very much that. It's actually the stillness. It's like actually being present, like so present in that stillness and experiencing really what's going on. Because I love to sit there and with the door open, and I can, because I get up at the moment because the clocks are about to change, so the birds aren't even awake. It's still very dark, and just hearing the breeze in the trees, or you know, a gecko making a noise outside, like or nothing. Like, they're the things that I'm like, wow. I mean, I don't have the gate 52, but fucking hell, like, for me, that stillness piece, that just lights me up. And I totally agree. Like, to have anything, you know, or anything listening or watching or trying to take photos of that or shit, that's just, it defeats the purpose.
So I think this period of time is a turning away, I think, from our kind of absolute initial, like, it's, sure, great, 10 years plus of wall-to-wall internet on our smartphones has been interesting, but I think a lot of us are like, I don't feel better from this experience, actually. I would like to return to my wildness a little bit. So I'm going to finish with a poem called Freedom, because it's all about the 55.
My son just wrote a poem called Freedom.
Okay, we need to read that next time.
I don't think he'd let me, but it was very good.
Poem's called Freedom. Here's to everyone writing a poem called Freedom in April. This is by Nikita Gill. Once you were made of sky. Do you remember that? Before they told you what you were supposed to be, before they destroyed your elegant wings, before they tricked you and chained you to an idea, to a prison they made for you and branded you with a painful label, tried to remold you into something easier for them to understand. But your blood didn't let you forget, did it? The taste of the sky, the memories of flying to the horizon, just to kiss the sun before he fell asleep. Once Apollo himself loved you so much that he softened the sun's heat so it couldn't melt your wings. He's still waiting for you to remember who you were. Come, you have always known what it would take to eat those chains and fly free again. Nothing about this was ever going to be easy. Freedom was built on backs and bones and blood. Take the thing that is owed to you, forge new wings in the belly of betrayal. Watch them quiver as you rise again, this time breathing fire, your spine made of fury. Show them what happens when they try to steal the voices born of sky. Become your own battle cry.
Wow. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening along. Thanks, Jen, so much for your wisdom, as always. And yeah, we are going to leave it on that. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone, for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means, get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.